I'm going to bring in a conversation with me. So our first conversation is going to be with one of my sisters, one of my friends. We grew up together. Pam, come on up here. We grew up together, and we grew up together in July. So in your
California, been there. We moved there when I was 3, and I'll be 56 years old on the 28th of this month.
Do you remember how long it's been since we met? Do you remember around?
It was about 1987, 86 or 87. I was just out of high school, and I met Tony. Tony was selling dope. I used to buy crack from her. I was a drug addict. Back then, I'm just saying. That's part of my story. That's part of my bruises. That's when I met Tony. Nobody could cabbage patch. That dance back then, couldn't nobody swing that with swag like Tony could.
Yes, I met Pam. I was selling dope. Pam was smoking dope. That's how we met. That was our experience, right? And we're still friends today. Yes. So y'all can give it up for that. But it was a tumultuous, rocky experience, nonetheless.
Tony was a gangster, y'all.
Still is.
Back in there.
That's when I met Tony.
I'm only selling dope because I was with one of the biggest dope dealers in the city at that time. And so I was doing what it was that I was conditioned. And I'm looking over at Prevail because, look, I'm looking at Prevail because Prevail is a place I ended up having to go stay, but it was called the Women's Center at some point. We just gonna keep it real tonight. We're gonna be 180 bracket. A lot of the people that are in our generation, we either were perpetuating violence or we were experiencing violence. We were on, and I don't think that that's changed much, but I still want to keep it kind of where we were. So tell us about your experience, and because we're talking about 50 shades of bruises. Yeah, so, and I know that I'm gonna have to pull some stuff out of you because this isn't a story. People know you, but I've known you for quite a while. And so I was very intentional about putting you into this space. And so you said that your journey started with drug addiction. And so, did you have any experience or exposure to intimate partner or domestic violence based on the definition prior to your drug use?
Almost definitely. I was the victor and the victim. I hit too, because I don't have a problem with hitting. I didn't have a problem with hitting. I was very violent. I come from a very violent neighborhood and a very violent household. Because we were taught somebody hit you better hit them back. If you don't hit them back, then you're going to get hit when you got home. And I didn't want to be hit when I got home, so I would hit first and then lie later and say they was going to hit me because I don't like to be hit. So my siblings, I was the youngest of 5 siblings, so everybody told me what to do, and if I didn't do it, they hit me. So that was just the way we communicated in our house, and I believe it derived from, I'd rather you learn here because the white man gonna teach you later, and if the system gets you, you're gonna be sorry. So, it was to protect us what they thought was protecting us from a place. So my mom hooked us with extension cords, and belts and, and
She's saying because I know.
And switches and, so it was just the way the African American culture, and I don't bash them for it because I believe that's what they were accustomed to. So I raised my kids the same way. I said, if you don't fight, you don't fight me. So I was taught, and I thought it was the right way. And I began to teach my own kids the same way.
So for us, not only were we raised from individuals, so our grandparents were pre-this, or they were pre-civil rights movement, and then our parents were civil rights or post-civil rights movement, I want to say, because then there was the flooding of the drug epidemic, heroin, and all of that, which meant that we didn't really have functional parents, because there was a lot of strife and contention in the house. And then you have us. And we are gang babies, crack cocaine babies, right? And so you couple all of that with drug addiction and drug use and sexual assault and rape and all of those different things. I'm saying that intentionally because what I want to make sure that I create is a space of clarity. Individuals such as yourself, such as myself, from the era that we're from, we've made so many mistakes that what we don't want to do is say that we were victims, because then it almost seems like we are making an excuse for all of the mistakes that we made. But today I want to talk to the survivor. So I'm not talking to the one who was abused. I'm not talking to the abuser. I'm talking to now my sister girl, Pam, the survivor.
The beginning of my journey was when my oldest son turned 16. And I told you about this. My seed spoke back to me. I don't know how it would feel to someone else, but he said, you chose dope over me and that nigga. That's what he told me. And I wanted to hurt him for that because it hurt me. And when I went into recovery, I cried every day over it. That was the best thing he could have ever said to me, because that was his truth, that was his perception, that was his reality concerning me. I embraced it. And it hurt bad. But when your child speaks to you and they say to you what their perception of you really is, I embraced it wholeheartedly and I told him thank you. It took him 7 years to forgive me from all the trauma that I exposed him to just from not being there. So that was my journey. That was the greatest thing one of my kids could have ever said to me, because that's what catapulted me into my journey of healing and saying, okay, no more pain. I can't be the reason why my children suffer anymore. That was a bruise for me. That was trauma. That was a wound. And I had to face that.
What forms of abuse have you been exposed to?
Verbal abuse, the hitting each other over the years. Sometimes it's just so much that you can't recover from that. So much pain, so many, the verbal abuse, the economical abuse, the sexual abuse, the everything. Just all my life. Everything I did was violent. Some of my childhood friends, they say, I remember when you would say things to me, and I'd be like, what? I was mean as a child. I was mean coming up. I was just a mean person. And I didn't really realize that, because that's just what happened.
So you said that you were mean as a child. Do you think that you were born a mean child?
No, but they used to tell me that every day. My older sister was 10 years old when I was born. So she never had a childhood. So she raised me because mom worked all the time. She resented having to give up her childhood to raise me. So everything she did, she didn't want to do it. But she had to. All my childhood pictures are her feeding me, combing my hair, doing something for me. So she didn't get to be a child because she had to raise me. Totally resented that. I was Peter Rabbit, Big Nose. I was everything. I never had a name other than calling me a name.
When did you begin in your latter years to recognize that you were a victim of abuse as a child? And how did it resonate with you? How did it land with you?
I didn't really realize it until I woke up, because I went from one incarceration to another. I was in group homes, foster homes, jails, prison, so someone was always telling me something to do. From a child, somebody was telling me something to do. So I went to foster homes, I went to juvenile, they was telling me what to do. I went to prison, I was in prison every year for about 15 years, at least 9 months out of the year. So I never knew how to live my life without somebody telling me what to do. So it was just normal. I was, I didn't really realize it until I woke up one day and I didn't know how to operate a cell phone. I didn't know how to operate a computer. I didn't know how to navigate life. And I'm 31 years old and I don't have a clue, right? But I knew how to beat you up. I knew how to cuss you out. I knew how to act tough, but I was really wounded and hurting. But I would project that energy because I didn't know how to do anything else because that was okay in the streets. So violence was all I knew.
So I'm gonna fast track us. Getting closer to where we are today, but not all the way there, because you and I have some similar journeys, right? We have some similar things that we have experienced. First on the concrete, right? Well, in our childhood. So first we both grew up together. We grew up in dysfunctional homes with a lot of abuse, sexual assault, molestation, rape, incest, you name it, just all of that stuff. Watching abuse, exposed to it on a regular. So it became then the norm. And then as a teenager, you start dealing with different stuff, in the community, with your peers. There's abuse with your things, there's abuse, right? I was a fighter too. I was trying to stutter a little bit too. I was a fighter too, gangster. I fought some. At some point, as I got older, I stopped fighting. I recognized that I had a problem. Then I hid in the church.
Come on now. Don't even start me on that.
My first experience was when they didn't know what to do with me, or the experience that I was having with intimate partner violence. And because they didn't know, they just kind of were sweeping it under the rug and, just put it away. What was your experience when it came to trying to get the healing that you needed from experiencing abuse? Were you able to find it in the church?
I wasn't friendly when I first got to the church. I wasn't coming for people at all because I was really afraid that I was going to end up back in prison for the rest of my life. And so when I came only for God. So it wasn't even about the people for me. When I first came home from prison, the last time I went in 2001 when I paroled, I paroled into a behavior modification program where I stayed there. I lived there for 2 years. So I lived there for 2 years, and in living there for 2 years, I learned how to take care of my natural self. That's why it never bothered me what the people said. I had to learn how to be naturally good, because I no longer wanted to be so spiritual that I was so no earthly good.
What's naturally good?
I was trying to learn how to navigate in my own flesh. And I got caught up in all the jumping and shouting and howling and all the emotional stuff. And I began to lose myself because I no longer could shout myself free from still cussing folks out at home. And then I'd go to church, and then I was jumping and shouting and falling out and doing the stuff you're doing and not knocking the church at all. But I had to learn how to use my natural tools, use my anger management skills, use my tools that I had, that I was covering them up with the spirituality and the shanda-da-da-da.
So it's two things. It's two things that I'm hearing, and I want to make sure that I'm hearing it correctly. One, the jumping up and down, shouting, all of that stuff. Anybody in this space that has not dealt with addiction, just know, that addiction is a real thing, and so those endorphins chants and different things, even when you're jumping up and down and shouting in the church, it is a euphoria to be experienced. And so for an addict, you know, that can become another form of addiction. One, that's what I'm hearing. Two, is that, oh God, bring it back, almost lost that one. It'll come back to me. That was the first thing that I was hearing though when you were saying is that as an addict, you're operating then in another form of an addictive behavior. And it wasn't the fault of the church, it was just that, but they would, two, is there were tools. And so now I point to Prevail, because there were tools that I was given, and if I hadn't applied those tools to my life, I would still be a victim of violence today. Or I would be violent, because I was either going to be abused or abused. There was no other option other than those two.
Well, for me, I ended up going back to prison again. From the Nickelodeon area in Great America, I hit my husband in the Great America area because I'm still violent. So the jumping and shouting ain't helping me. Now I had to go back to a 17-week class and take this anger management class because I'm so angry and violent still. I still had to get the tools in order to maintain and function in life out here. It's not acceptable. Violence is the lowest form of human expression, and it's never acceptable.
Say that again.
Violence is the lowest form of human expression, and it's never acceptable. It's not okay for me to cuss you out because I'm feeling some type of way. It's not okay for me to put my hands on you.